Hello, Steelers fans! This is Tuka bringing you another fresh news roundup straight to you. But before we dive into the latest updates, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to not miss any details. And, of course, share this video with friends and leave your comments below. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Thursday night, just a day away, all the talks and speculations will finally come to an end. The first round of the 2024 NFL Draft will kick off, and the Steelers will add the next player they hope will make a lasting impact on the franchise. Obviously, it's a crucial decision without a clear-cut candidate, and that's why speculations are running wild about which direction the Steelers will take. We're approaching the big event with all cards on the table. Thanks to the intense work done during the draft process, including participation in the Senior Bowl, Combine, College Pro Days, and pre-draft visits, we have access to crucial information. These activities not only reveal the Steelers' preferences but also provide us with privileged insights gathered from off-season events. Now it's crunch time, where all the preparation and planning turn into action. Which players stand out on the Steelers board compared to assessments from Pro Football Focus or other draft-specialized sites? Which pieces are worth trading for, or what would it take for the Steelers to pull the trigger on a trade? And what about the strategies of other teams? How can the Steelers navigate the draft chaos and secure the player they want in the most crucial round? We have many strategic meetings, said Omar Khan to reporters on Monday afternoon at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. We've already started by Thursday on where the limit would be, or our comfort level with certain guys. And you know, there are a million scenarios you go through now, and between GMs, we all talk to each other. So, we kind of feel out who wants to move up, down, and you're prepared. Before we really delve into any scenarios the Steelers might face on Thursday night, I'll present all the information I've learned from various sources throughout the draft process. The tackle is the priority in the first round. Assistant offensive line coach Isaac Williams not only assisted the coach at the Senior Bowl but also offensive line coach Pat Meyer was specifically instructed to watch the right tackles during that process. When the team's offensive line coach is instructed to look mainly at one point on the line and not another, there's no reason to overthink anything. Of all the tackles within reach of the Steelers, the one I've heard the most about is Talys Fuaga from Oregon State. In fact, I've heard they love him. The only question there is how much they love him. Go back and read the quote from Khan mentioned above about his comfort level with certain players. That's what he's talking about. What's their comfort level with the trade? 3 points? 5 picks? 8 picks? If the tackle doesn't work out in the first round, expect the center, wide receiver, or cornerback to be the fallback option. The Steelers want a tackle, but they won't go into Thursday night handcuffed to one position. 22 out of the Steelers' 30 pre-draft visits were with offensive linemen, wide receivers, or cornerbacks. There's no smokescreen here. They want to address these 4 positions in this draft, preferably in the first 3 or 4 rounds. At wide receiver, that's probably the last resort in the first round. Probably only if the tackles they wanted vanished, and I think Graham Barton from Duke and Cooper DeJean from Iowa would have to vanish as well. I've heard the Steelers like Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU and Adonai Mitchell from Texas. Those are probably the 2 most likely receiver candidates at the 20th pick. I've heard some people in the building really like Zach Frazier, but he's obviously not a first-round candidate. Ideally, I think they want to go tackle in the first round and then find a way to get Frazier in the second. But we know how unlikely that is. And it's impossible to predict because all teams reset after the first night of the draft to rethink strategies. There are 32 picks that need to happen before anyone has a clearer idea of what might happen in the second round. I've also heard the Eagles want to move up in the draft but are more directly tied to the Steelers. The Eagles have the 22nd pick in the first round, just 2 spots behind the Steelers. I can't speak to other reports that circulated on Tuesday, but I've heard part of the Eagles' rationale is to prevent the Steelers from getting the tackle or cornerback they want. Now, let's delve into the Steelers' strategy for Thursday night based on the available information. Given the high priority the Steelers are placing on the tackle position and the quality of players in this draft, it seems highly likely that they will seek a trade-up rather than a trade-down. Additionally, it's worth highlighting an interesting observation made by Khan. "I would just say you never say never. In my opinion, you never trade back with a good player. But obviously, if there's a scenario that makes sense for both sides, you have to look at it." I wholeheartedly agree with the first part of that quote. For the Steelers, it would take an extremely unfavorable scenario for them to consider trading back, and even then, they would have to receive quite attractive offers to do so. When it comes to assembling the draft board, Tomlin has made it clear that they do it with their own interests in mind. This approach is standard for most teams, and that's why Tomlin emphasizes, "It's a waste of time trying to figure out how others can meet our needs and the like." Tomlin also clarified that the board is built with the top 20 best players in the draft, not necessarily the players most likely available to the Steelers. This is also a winning way of doing things. It prevents teams from getting too committed to needs rather than just getting the consensus best player. Looking at trading possibilities, it makes more sense for the Steelers to focus their attention on the range between picks 15 and 17, which would imply trading up 3 to 5 spots. The first 6 picks of the draft will likely be occupied by 4 quarterbacks and 2 wide receivers, or perhaps 3 of each. Joe Alt from Notre Dame may be the first tackle off the board outside of that initial group, likely going to the Titans at the 7th overall pick. After that, the tackle run could go in several directions. Arguments could be made for several teams to prioritize tackle before that ideal point, including the Bears, 9th overall, Jets, 10th, Vikings, 11th, Raiders, 13th, and Saints, 14th. While the Colts, 15th, Seahawks, 16th, and Jaguars, 17th, could consider a tackle, the Steelers may need to trade ahead of the Bengals at the 18th overall pick if they are set on a tackle. Tackles who are likely worth trading for include Alt, Fuaga, Oluyemi Fashanu from Penn State, Troy Fautanu from Washington, and J.C. Latham from Alabama. While all the teams mentioned above could realistically snag one of these guys, the good news is there are at least 3 cornerbacks, 3 edge defenders, and the occasional tight end Brock Bowers who could help some of these tackles stay on the board longer. To paint one of the many potential scenarios, the Colts, at the 15th overall pick, are a trade-up candidate. Wide receiver and defender are perhaps their 2 biggest needs, and the top tier of receivers will be off the board long before they get on the clock. They could trade back to acquire some extra capital and land Thomas, Mitchell, or a cornerback like Dejon or Nate Wiggins from Clemson. Trading 5 spots could give the Steelers a real shot at landing one of these 5 tackles. Returning to the point raised by Khan, all these scenarios hinge on how comfortable the Steelers are in giving up valuable assets to secure a player they truly value, whether it's a tackle or any other position. Last year, we saw the Steelers demonstrate considerable confidence by giving up the 120th pick in the draft to move up 3 spots and select Broderick Jones. However, each player on their board will have a different level of comfort associated with them. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to trading in the draft. It all boils down to finding the right player for the right price. A big mystery that persists before the draft kicks off on Thursday is what's the threshold for selecting Fuaga, Fautanu, or Latham. It's possible the Steelers are secretly excited about a player like Amarius Mims and fear a team like the Eagles might jump ahead and snatch him before they do. That's the enigma that will continue to intrigue us, regardless of how many analyses we conduct in the media. These are just some of the many scenarios that Khan, Tomlin, Andy Weidel, and the entire South Water Street team have been working on in the days leading up to the draft. It will be very interesting to see how it all plays out, seeing things like how much they really love the tackle in the first round, or perhaps seeing how much they believe in day 2 or early day 3 prospects to fill that void. So, folks, excited for the draft? Share your expectations in the comments below and let's engage. Speculations are in full swing. The Steelers might be eyeing a trade to secure the player of their dreams. What are the possible scenarios? Will we see some trades go down live? Stay tuned to find out. No matter how it all ends up, There's no doubt Khan and the Steelers will have turned every stone in an effort to get the guy they want on Thursday night.